All right, let's jump right into it today, okay? We're going to be tackling a career path that you maybe haven't thought much about.
Okay.
But trust me on this, it's really interesting, definitely more than it sounds like at first. We're diving into the world of wholesale merchants in electronics and telecommunications equipment and parts.
Wow.
Yeah, I know what you're thinking, like, whoa, hold on, I don't know the first thing about circuit boards. But here's the thing. This deep dive, it's for everyone, wherever you're at in your career journey. Just starting to think about options, great. Knee deep in interview prep right now. We gotcha.
I think people don't always realize like how vital these folks are behind the scenes in tech. They're not just salespeople. They're the ones making the connections, making sure all this cool tech we use actually exists. They're the negotiators, the deal makers.
100%. And to really get this, we're going deep with RoleCatcher's career guide on wholesale merchants. They've got the inside track on what it really takes to make it, day-to-day stuff, but also those skills that'll make you stand out. Plus, we'll hit on their interview tips, even how to beat those robot job applications. Because who hasn't felt like their resume's just going into a void?
Oh, tell me about it. And RoleCatcher actually has some smart stuff on how to get a human to actually see your application, but we'll circle back to
For
that.
sure. Okay, so first things first. What does a wholesale merchant do? Picture this. You're the bridge between a company that makes those crazy foldable phone screens and like a huge smartphone brand.
Oh, I see.
Right. That's them. Finding the buyers, connecting them with the right suppliers, making it all come together.
It's a cool mix of tech and business smarts.
Yeah.
The guide really stresses that you need to get not just the tech itself, but what the customer actually needs.
Sure.
Spotting trends before everyone else, seeing those opportunities, always learning new stuff.
It's wild. Like, you got to be able to explain the newest 5G thing to your techie friend and your grandma, and then convince a boardroom full of execs that this microchip, this one right here, is what their next product needs.
Exactly. And that's where the negotiation skills are huge EE. RoleCatcher actually uses this example of energy-efficient chips, how those are trending now. These merchants, they got to be ahead of that curve. They're the ones connecting those dots, contracts, deals, making sure those key parts are flowing. And it's more than just sign here. It's building those relationships for the long haul.
Which makes you think, what kind of person thrives in this world? Fast-paced, high stakes, always learning, gotta love the tech, but also be business-minded and good with people.
Yeah, no doubt. It's demanding, for sure, but can be seriously rewarding. And RoleCatcher is honest about that, the tough parts, but also the potential, the impact you can have.
So we've got a good picture now of what these tech negotiators actually do. But the real question, right, is this you?
And that's what's so great about these deep dives.
Yeah.
It's not just here's a job, it's does this fit you? Your skills, what you want to achieve, even how much chaos you can handle.
Speaking of which, let's be honest, this isn't for someone who wants things calm and predictable, right? Rollcatcher, they lay out the good and the bad, which I think is really helpful to see the whole picture.
Yeah, they do a good job of showing both sides. And on the plus side, the money you can make, that definitely gets your attention. On average, we're talking $50,000 to $100,000 a year.
Whoa, that's not bad ATL, especially when you're just starting out. But you mentioned like moving up. What does that look like in this field?
So RoleCatcher has some cool examples. You might begin as a junior merchant, right? Maybe straight out of college. You've got your business admin degree, some sales certifications you picked up.
Makes sense.
And then you can become a senior merchant, running a team, bigger clients, even like specializing in one kind of electronics. Some people use this to go into, supply chain stuff, or even tech consulting.
So lots of room to grow, find your niche. What about the people who do well here? Is it just being a tech whiz, or is there more to it?
That's funny you should say that, because RoleCatcher, they go beyond the tech stuff. They talk about active listening, persuasion, even writing well. That's important too.
Now that you mention it, I remember that part about typical interactions, right? You're always talking to someone, whether it's that tough supplier you got to negotiate with, or explaining some tech stuff to a customer, or even reports for your own team.
Yeah, lots of moving parts. So being adaptable, a problem solver, that's key. Things change fast. You're juggling stuff, got to think on your feet. And, oh, can't forget, being okay with risk. RoleCatcher says those big salaries often come with bonuses tied to how well you do. So comfort with pressure, knowing things might not always be certain.
Man, so it's not just knowing the tech, it's people skills, reading the room, all that. For some people, that's exciting. For others, maybe a bit much.
Totally. Two sides to every coin, right? And that's where RoleCatcher's good about showing the downsides, too. They're honest. It's competitive. Tech changes constantly, so you got to love it to learn. Always catching up almost.
Not a career for someone who wants to do the same thing every day, that's for sure. But for the right person, sounds like it's amazing. But they can't expect everyone to just jump in with zero experience. What does RoleCatcher say for people just starting to think about this?
Well, they have a whole section, leveling up your wholesale merchant game. Really practical stuff. They're big on internships. Get your foot in the door, see what it's really like, start meeting people.
Internships, yeah, that makes sense.
And on that note, they talk about shadowing too. Like, find someone whose career you admire. Maybe you know them. Maybe you just got to send a message, ask if you can pick their brain for an hour. You'd be amazed how many people will help out.
Okay, so internships, shadowing, that's for getting experience. But what about actually landing those chances? The job market, especially in tech, it's brutal out there. How do you even stand out when everyone's got a degree and a fancy resume? It's like trying to stand out in a room full of people wearing the same outfit, you know? What am I supposed to do? Juggle?
Pretty much. No, but seriously, RoleCatcher gets it. They have this whole thing about beating the automated recruiter, and it's full of good tips. Like, first off, they say your resume can't just be a general one anymore. You got to tweak it for ECH job.
So I can't just blast out the same resume to 100 places.
Nope. You got to speak their language, use the skills and words they're looking for in the job description.
Like a secret code almost. Gotta know what they want, so my resume has it hidden in there.
Exactly. So do your research. Really look at their website, what they're about, even the people who already work there in similar roles. What are they saying? What matters to them? Then you can make your resume match that.
So it's like I'm talking directly to the hiring manager's brain, even if they haven't even seen it yet. Pretty sneaky. But what about the actual interview? You mentioned those practice questions. That's where the nerves kick in.
Oh, yeah, that's where the rubber meets the road.
Yeah.
And RoleCatcher's got you there, too. They've got this huge e-database, over 120,000 practice questions. And get this, they've got some made just for wholesale merchant roles.
No way. So not just like, tell me about a time you messed up kind of stuff.
Yeah.
This is the real deal.
The real deal. They have one that's like, tell me about a time you had to negotiate with a really tough supplier. Which, let's face it, happens all the time in this job. So you got to know how to handle that. And by practicing, you're not just memorizing, you're actually thinking like you'd think on the job.
So it's like getting a sneak peek behind the scenes, You're not just learning about the job. You're starting to think like you're already doing it.
100%. And that can make all the difference when you're up against a bunch of other people who all want the same job.
Totally. So to wrap up our deep dive here on wholesale merchants in electronics and telecommunications equipment and parts, what are the big takeaways?
Well, one, this isn't your grandma's 9 to 5. It's fast-paced, things are always happening, and it's got huge E-potential. If you love tech, you're good at business, and you genuinely like working with people.
It's not just knowing how a computer works. It's knowing how all those tiny little parts make it work.
Yeah.
And then how to sell that, I guess.
Yeah. It's problem-solving, negotiating, seeing the next big thing before it happens,
Yeah.
and building those relationships, all in one.
And if that sounds exciting, if you like the challenge of always learning and keeping up with the latest tech, this could be it, right?
For sure. Just remember, prep is key. Use those RoleCatcher resources. Practice those interview questions. And don't be shy about reaching out to people who are already doing this.
Network, learn, explore. You might just be the one who connects the next big tech breakthrough with the product that changes everything. That's pretty cool when you think about it.
That's awesome.
All right, until next time, everyone, happy deal making.